Hey, good morning, Karl. Quick demo video for you for your Sabers Scavenger, and this is installed with the Goth Master chassis. So there are a lot of moving parts on here, and we'll try to go over everything. Okay. Obviously, it's a one-button setup. The one button is put into the cog. You had mentioned that it was very important that I tried to lube that down, which I did. I went in and I took some of the white washers that are inside this mechanism out, shaved them down a little bit, put them back in, and I did put a little bit of lube on the two piece right underneath the cog, so it does slide pretty freely. One thing you need to watch out for, which is the same on all these that I do, is these fins. These fins right here. There are so many small screws holding those in. And I tested this guy. I've probably opened and closed this Saber no less than 60 times, just testing it, making sure that it slid properly, and then just testing in general. During that time, two small screws fell out on me. I'm not going to be able to point them out very easily, but inside the hinges right there, there's a screw on each side of the fins. I had two of those fall out, and I had to put them back in with a pair of needle nose pliers. I got them pretty tight. I went through and I checked the rest. But as you use this guy, you probably just want to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen to you. All right. How you get to everything is you want to take this pommel here, twist it clockwise to release the J-lock, and then slowly pull it out. All right, we'll do that now. You want to be very careful. It only goes in a certain way, and it only comes out a certain way. If you'll notice, this is your chassis, by the way, and we'll go over this in detail. But on this top piece, you can see a channel right here and another channel right here. That is to make clearance for the two screws. You got a screw here, and you've got an upper screw here, right? Both here. Is to make clearance for those two screws and get past that. And those two screws are for the J-locking mechanism on your pommel. So when you put it in, it's pretty easy because you can see this piece. But when you're pulling it out, if you don't have this lined up properly as you're pulling it out, it's not going to come out on you. Once you get this out and you get this far, you can take your chassis and carefully pull it out of the pommel. Just be gentle with it. Everything fits, but this isn't one of those chassis where you can just go jamming it in the pommel and then jamming it in the Saber. This took a lot of work to do. Probably, if I had to guess, I probably have about 9.5 hours worth of work into putting this all together. Most of that was having to follow the Goth video and instructions because this is the first time I'd done one. So I had to see how it went together. If I did another one in the future, it would still take me a while, but not quite 9 hours now that I know how it goes together. But still, there are a lot of moving pieces. I got your battery decal on your battery that you were asking me about there, right? So you got a removable battery. You got a kill switch. This is the 28 millimeter Smuggler's Outpost Dark Side speaker that you sent me. So that's in there. You got this piece right here is just on with magnets. So you can come over here if you ever needed to get to your board, and you can pull it off just like that, and then your board is right here. I have a piece of electrical tape on the top side of the board because this piece is made out of brass and it was riding super close to the board, and it just makes me nervous. So I just put a piece of electrical tape over the board so it wouldn't touch any of the soldered pads, and that works fine. You've got the stock connector that comes with the kit. So you've got that piece obviously there, and then that makes contact with that pin piece in there that that doesn't come out. We'll just try to work our way down. What else we got? We got this crystal chamber right here, or this crystal right here. I couldn't fit a real quartz crystal in there because of the way that this mounts on the bottom. The bottom of the quartz had to be very particular. And then the crystal itself had to be perfectly round because there is a motorized piece on top here that spins when I turn the Saber on that you'll see in a second. I tried to shave down a few different pieces of quartz and I couldn't get it. It just had to be perfectly right. So I ended up using the provided crystal that came with the kit. Okay, so you have an independent NeoPixel accent right underneath that crystal. to light it up, which I did some different things for the different sound fonts that you sent me. You gave me 5. It's doing a little something different for each font. You'll see that here in a second. And then right underneath this crystal that you can't see is a red LED. So there's a red LED right there that'll shine that you'll see here in a second. And then you come down to these greeblies right here. Underneath these are another 3 yellow LEDs. So that will light up this piece right here. Rather than program those independently, what I did was wire them up to the sound or the speaker pads so that they react to sound. They'll flicker with sound. They'll turn on when the saber turns on and stuff like that. That's just a little something I like to do if I have to run actual LEDs instead of NeoPixel accents. So you'll see all that fire up. The red LED will stay red, and of course the yellow will stay yellow no matter what font you're on. You do have 2 doors that open up on both sides. So you got this door that opens up here, this door that opens up here to give you a full crystal reveal on both sides. And these doors have magnets, so when you close them, they kind of find their home, just like that, right? And that's probably about it for the chassis. I mean, it's just a lot of work to put together, but it's very beautiful. I hope that you like it. Yeah, moving on to the Saber. One last thing I had to do with the pommel. 4 screws were protruding into the pommel, and it wouldn't allow me to put the chassis in. So anybody doing this master chassis kit, you might run into that. It's these 4 screws right here, right? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. I just took them out to the garage, cut about half the length off of them with my Dremel and put them back. And then I went in here and I filed down those holes a little bit because there was just a little bit of material poking out from when it was drilled and tapped. So I did that. It's all smooth, so now the chassis fits in, right? Although this is a 1-button setup, this is one thing I forgot to mention. Although this Saber is a 1-button setup, there is a secondary single switch on this chassis. The light's kind of reflecting off of it. There's a little brass switch right here so that you can operate this guy outside of the Saber. It's just wired in line with your one switch that hooks up to here so that the cog will operate the chassis, right? So that little brass tactile there. Let's turn this light off. And we'll come over here and we will flip the kill switch. So as you can see, I got this doing a little something different. If we come over here and we turn on the Saber, or turn on the chassis rather, see how your red LED came on. You got your yellow LEDs on here. And then if you can see that, if the camera's picking it up, but you've got your spinning motor up here. It's going to be kind of hard to see with the light, but hopefully you can see that spinning right there, right? Just like that. What I did to program the actual motor, in case you ever want to change it, was there's a positive and a negative wire coming off the motor. I ran the positive wire up to this PCB right here so that I wouldn't have to run it all the way down the chassis. I took the negative line and I put it on LED 6, on LED pad number 6. And I used a NeoPixel accent code from Fet's library, but I kept the color as white, even though there's no data line. That way this thing comes on when the Saber's on, and then it turns off when the Saber's off, right? So if you want to do anything different, or if you want to add fonts or anything like that, when you make the code for this motor, use a white pixel accent from Fet's library. And that's what I did. So off when the Saber's off, and simply on when the Saber's on. Don't have it flash or anything like that. And that helps with the motor turning on when the Saber's on. And of course, I've got that crystal on a timer. As you can see, I talked too much and the crystal went out. So when putting the pommel on, there's a certain way you need to do it, because these cutouts here in the pommel for the J-lock system, they need to line up with these grooves right here, right? So we'll put this on and I'll show you how you can do that here in a second. Let me put this on real quick. like to go nice and slow and make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to do. The chassis will stop exactly where it needs to stop in the pommel. You'll notice this when you get it because it's kind of hard to see it in the light. But on this brass piece that's right above that J-lock system right there, there is a groove. You can kind of see it right there, right? There's a groove right there. And that needs to line up with a slot for that J-lock system right there. If you don't have that lined up properly, this will not line up in the Saber properly. So it's very important that you do that, right? But once we have that in, and we can carefully come in and insert the chassis into the Saber, nice and slow, should go right in on you. We'll lock this in, turn the pommel counterclockwise to engage that J-lock system, right? We'll turn this off. We'll open this up, and I like to do two hands. I'm not quite quick enough with one hand to do this and demo it, but a quick flick on the switch and then back off of it. If you're on the switch too long, you will engage mute mode. But you got your LEDs firing up like they should. Nice smooth swing. Gave you twist off. I did not give you swing on because there's so much involved with taking this out and putting it back in that if you had swing on or something like that, it would probably ignite accidentally. So I just give you the swing off feature. Of course, you can do whatever you want. There is a copy of the config file I use on your SD card as well. All right, but to change sound fonts, it's a long press on the button and then back off of it.
Then solo.
Just like that. Then solo. You could probably hear the motor. It's just kind of the nature of these motors. They're going to make a little bit of sound. There's just no getting around it. All right. We'll go ahead and we'll throw a blade in this guy. For a blade retention, it's just one of these 4 screws up here. One of them's longer. So what I've done is I've come up here with a silver Sharpie, and I've just colored this one silver. You could wipe it off with some alcohol if you don't want it on there. But I wanted you to have a way to tell which one of these 4 screws was the actual blade retention. So it's this guy right here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and back that out. And we'll put a blade in it, and we'll go over the other sound fonts. It is longer than the rest, but it's easy to come out. So you just kind of want to unscrew it a little bit, feel it with your finger, and make sure it's out of there. And of course, you got stock V3s in there. All right, long pins, because this Saber needs long pins to operate. Once we feel like we got the blade in, we'll go ahead and we'll lock it down. These fins open up just enough to accept a 1-inch diameter blade and not ignite the Saber. I mean, those fins are right on the blade. All right, so be careful when you're putting the blade in. Got the blade in. I'm going to try to do this with my thumb. There we go. Nice smooth swing. We'll go to another sound font.
Ray Skywalker.
Race Scavenger. Nice yellow blade. Quick tap on the button or the switch is your blaster bolt deflex. If you want a blade lockup, you'd have to hold the button down and hit the Saber at the same time. And it will stay like that until you let go of the button. All right, turn this off. To play your music track, it's a double tap. Hard to do, but you'll get the hang of it, right? And then a double tap to turn it off as well. Just like that. We'll go to another sound font. This is the father one, I think. One more.
That lightsaber was Luke's.
And we're back to unstable. I gave you a nice, I think this is the angry unstable blade. And we will take the blade out of this guy and take the chassis out, and I'll show you the different sound fonts on the actual chassis. Okay. Tighten this back up so it doesn't go anywhere. The blade retention screw is probably a little bit longer than it needs to be. You could shave it down if you want to. It's not something that I felt was necessary, so I left it alone. But just know that you can if you need to. Go just a millimeter or two. Okay, we'll come back, disengage that J-lock, and then just carefully pull it out. And remember, pay attention to where your screws are at so that the chassis comes all the way out. Those grooves are lined up with these two silver tubes on both sides. So as you're pulling this guy out, you line up those two silver tubes right there with that screw. It'll come out on you just like that, right? But if you feel like it's not coming out, don't force it. Try to find the sweet spot. But anyway, we'll turn this back on. So that's your unstable. We'll go another one.
Ben Solo. Hold easy.
Ray Skywalker. Ray who?
Here's your Ray Skywalker. A Scavenger. Father.
That lightsaber was Luke's.
Maybe one more, I think. Now we're back to unstable, right? Just like that. And we'll take the, we'll go ahead and take the chassis out so that we can flip the kill switch. Flip it like that. And I'll just go ahead and I'll leave the battery in since this guy has a kill switch. It won't come on during shipping. I just want to make sure that I line up the pommel correctly, which I have it in now. So we'll put this back in. That should be just about everything with this guy. Let me know if you got any questions. And if not, I will try to get this out in the mail to you today. All right, thanks.